The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're gonna love it.
Okay, let's go.
I'm probably at the point where I'm not even nervous anymore doing these podcast interviews, but I will tell you the thing I like to get right out of the way is the name pronunciation, because yours is somewhat difficult to remember. All right, everybody, Kawa Mawlayee is here, and for anybody that's watching this on YouTube and Spotify, again, I've said that before on other podcasts, but my man's got a gorgeous gun wall rack behind him, which looks absolutely spectacular. And so,
almost fell out of my chair trying to show you that.
yeah, exactly.
Just a
Let's
few of the-
start there, man. Let's start there. I mean, give us your intro, where you were born, where you're from. I know you're Muslim, and so this is going to be awesome because we're going to really dive into the Muslim religion and understanding Sharia law, understanding what that all is, and honestly trying to break down the weaponization of religion, which I'm a huge believer in religion being weaponized by the military industrial complex, and you're probably one of the best people to talk about that. So hey, welcome.
Thank you, Ray, so much. Man, you know, kind of like you, my family came here when I was very young. So my family's from Afghanistan. We lived in Kabul. We've been, you know,
Wow.
when I asked my grandfather and aunts and uncles how long we've been there, it seems like we've been there for hundreds of years. So we are Kabuli Afghans, and that's kind of important because Afghanistan is kind of tribal. So, you know, Kabuli Afghans are different from Kandahar Afghans, which are different from, you know, other, and because the country is very tribal. But my family came here during the Soviet invasion. When the Soviets invaded in 1979, we had plans to leave Kabul and go to Pakistan. My oldest uncle was already a foreign exchange student here in in Nebraska, in Omaha, Nebraska. And the plan wasn't to stay in Pakistan. The plan was to use Pakistan as a transition point to get to America while our paperwork was pending for America. So we left Afghanistan in 1981. This was right after my father was killed by Russian soldiers. And then we lived in Pakistan for about 6 months, waiting for our paperwork to get cleared to come to the States.
Yeah.
And then we came to Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places. I was 5 years old. My sister was like 2. But just imagine, like, I have a big family. So my mom, her sister, her 6 brothers, you know, a couple more kids. And my grandfather got us all out of Afghanistan with 4 different trips, in fact, putting his own self in danger because leaving the city, you had to go through Afghan army checkpoints. Some of those Afghan army checkpoints were also the Afghan faction that was that gave loyalty to the Communist Party.
Yeah.
So it's not like we were in good hands with the Afghan army back then. It was really just getting through their checkpoints. And then once you get kind of further down in Afghanistan, down south, you run into Mujahideen checkpoints. And Mujahideen were basically the early fighters that we would call Taliban now, you know, and they were freedom fighters.
Yeah.
These are people that defected from the government, defected from the Afghan military because of the communist influence. And they decided to kind of create a militia to fight the Russians on their own. We know them now as the Mujahideen.
We know them now as the Taliban, right? Like, would they be, this is so great. I didn't even realize there was going to be this layer. I've actually been wanting to try and do an episode educating basically the audience on the fact that the United States at one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, supported and backed the Mujahideen because they were fighting against the Soviets and communism in the 80s.
Yes.
So ironically, the U.S. went from backing the Afghani freedom fighters, known as the Mujahideen, to then fast forward 2 decades later to 9/11, and the Taliban is the worst thing in the world. But but they're not the same, right? Like the Mujahideen, did they become the Taliban, or are we talking 2 separate organizations?
Well, we got to include them because, you know, it's not like the Mujahideen just went away. They got absorbed into what we know as Taliban today.
Interesting. Okay.
So when the CIA in America created the Taliban, they were supposed to be a mediator group. They created them in Pakistan, and they were, you know, these old guys, they were all Mujahideen fighters at one point that now were kind of higher echelon, you know, And so the point of the Taliban was to be this mediator group to go into Afghanistan and bring all the tribal warlords together. Because
Yeah.
what do we do after we helped the Mujahideen defeat the Russians? We just left. We just left
Yeah.
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We had no post, battlefield plan as to, well, how do we create a government here? How do we reintegrate some of these people back in? And it was what happened after the U.S. left or stopped supporting the Mujahideen was that there was civil war in Afghanistan. Because again, Afghanistan's history has always been tribal. So when Afghans aren't fighting a foreign army or a foreign occupier, they fight themselves for power and territory. And so when the civil war happened, we created the Taliban. We said, hey, go in there and try to bring everybody together. But what really happened was the Taliban went to Afghanistan and started taking sides with some of
Okay.
these warlords. And then you had a big divide of two pieces. You had the Taliban and then you had the Northern Alliance.
Okay.
So we created the Taliban to go in there and mediate, but
And
then
when
we
you
ended up
say
joining.
we, let's pause for a second because
Okay.
I'm sure when you said it a few minutes ago, there were probably some people like, wait a minute, did he just say
Who's we?
the United States created the Taliban?
Yes. Yeah. The
The
CIA
CIA
specifically.
created Taliban. I love that
Yes.
because
And that's open source.
I know that's open source, but nobody
Mm.
knows that. You know what I mean? So like if you extrapolate that out, the CIA created the Taliban, then the natural question is, well, where does Osama bin Laden fit into that? Did the CIA create him as well? It's also open source that he was a CIA asset, right? But nobody knows
Yes.
this stuff. Give us your
And
take
bin
on all
Laden.
that.
No, nobody knows this stuff because nobody, with the smartphones we have, people I think just don't want to do the research or don't know where to
Yeah.
begin. So that's why I put these little news segments out to kind of educate people. But yes, the CIA specifically from the US government created the Taliban as a mediator group. Now, did they know that they're going to go to Afghanistan and take sides? Maybe, maybe not. But then what happened was when they did take sides, we had the Taliban and then we had the Northern Alliance. So then who do we link up with in 2001 to fight? We actually linked up with the opposite of the group that we stood up with,
Got it.
right?
Which
So it's
was the
almost like
Northern Alliance, right?
we knew that the Afghans would go back to Afghanistan from Pakistan and eventually take sides. And we knew that there was going to be some kind of opposition to the Taliban from other Afghans in the north, possibly. And that was the Northern Alliance. And that's who we actually linked up with in Afghanistan to then help train and all that, and then fight the Taliban that way. But that's kind of the beginning of the Taliban and their purpose. Their purpose was short-lived, and then they became who they are now. And so, yes, to go back to your question, I would say that a lot of the old Mujahideen fighters of Afghanistan probably later became Taliban commanders or some kind of Taliban figure of authority when going into Afghanistan.
Okay, okay. And so, obviously the whole Osama bin Laden 9/11, I'll tell you what I've loved more than anything. Unfortunately for the Palestinian people and Gaza happening, unfortunately for them, for sure. But man, that has opened up Pandora's box about everything and what the world has watched on our phones in terms of the genocide in Gaza for 2 years. Not only has that opened up a million questions about, let's say, the state of Israel, Netanyahu, all of that, people are going back and they're questioning everything. JFK's
Yeah,
assassination,
I love it.
the moon landing, 9/11, 9/11. Literally just the other day, there was more and more videos about Building 7. How the hell does Building 7 fall? It did not get hit by a plane. It falls in a complete pancake, looks identical to every other controlled demolition. So this stuff
Right.
is like Pandora's box is open and it's not closing. And by the way, I love Gen Z for this. Gen Z is just, they give zero fucks. They have no back history. They have no baggage. They're just calling a spade a spade. So as someone from Afghanistan though, what do you think Osama bin Laden was and where did he fit in all this? Was he really that bad of a guy or was he a scapegoat or what was he?
Well, I think in Afghanistan, he played a vital role because, the bin Laden family is super rich,
Mm,
and they own construction companies and they have contracts. They have contracts with the US, with all these different foreign countries. But I think what bin Laden brought to Afghanistan and brought to the fight was the money and the influence really, I should say, his network of connections
uh-huh.
that he brought. And yes, we absolutely worked with bin Laden. That's also open source. The CIA and bin Laden worked very well together during the Soviet invasion. But then at some point, we stopped working with him. And then we started to kind of villainize him or paint him with a different, with a different brush
Yeah.
as to who he actually was. Now, was bin Laden like a good person? Maybe I don't think so. But was bin Laden capable of planning such a elaborate terror attack such as 9/11 from some cave in Afghanistan? I personally don't think he was.
Yeah.
I don't think he was fully responsible for 9/11. And in fact, I remember there were sayings that bin Laden came out and actually communicated with the government after 9/11 and said that this isn't us. We didn't
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
But it's like, it doesn't matter who's a good guy and who's a bad guy, because what our government is very good at is we're very good at working with people regardless of whether they're bad or good, but we're also very good at making them look bad when we need to. you
100%.
know and so
100%.
that's it. We use them as pawns, right? I served the military for 23 years, 5 in the Marine Corps, the rest in special forces. And someone could argue that, Kawa, well, you were a pawn for all the forever wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I would say, you know what, man, technically you're right.
Yeah.
Technically, but I don't look my, I don't, but I don't, what I do on a personal level or on my individual level now is I, you know, it doesn't matter to me what I did as far as the bad stuff. Or let's say you say, well, Kawa, you were one of those terrorists too, because you went into Iraq and you killed people, or you went to Afghanistan and killed people. Well, maybe I did. Maybe I am a bad guy. But, everybody tries to repent for what they do. And that's
Yeah.
why what I do now is share knowledge and share my perspectives, not just as a political commentator, but as a Green Beret who has 23 years in the military, who has been to Iraq and Afghanistan several times, other places in the Middle East. And as a Muslim, I'm very familiar with their cultures and traditions. Rapport building is very easy for me, and so to say bin Laden was a terrorist, yeah, okay, let's agree on that. He's a terrorist. But to say that he was responsible for 9/11, I would have to disagree with you.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. And the funny thing is, to say bin Laden was a terrorist, I'm not going to mention the names, but I could mention some very well-known American and other country politicians that I would call them terrorists. You know what I mean? Like, the
Yeah.
definition of terrorist to me is something that, quite frankly, could be applied to people that many people call world leaders. So what was that? So
I would
you're
agree.
you're Afghani Muslim, and then you're going into Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, man, that's. And by the way, if any of this is like difficult to talk about, you don't have to answer if I touch a nerve or something. But man, you kind
No.
of had to be torn, right? Like, what was that like?
So this is a question that I often get: is what was it like to be a Muslim, and then part of a military that went into a Muslim country and possibly was
Yeah.
killing other Muslims? That was something that I dealt with early on during OIF-1 when we invaded Iraq, because I mean, it's like you're going through these motions. Okay, I'm an infantry guy. This is what we trained for. And then, I got my Marines to my left and right, and we're going to go in
And by the
here
way,
and go.
OIF, I forget what that stands for. Operations.
Yeah, Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was
Yeah.
Operation Iraqi Freedom. It was OIF-1. You can call it the invasion of Iraq,
Okay.
2003.
Okay. Was that Desert Storm? Was that Desert Storm or no?
No, Desert Storm was in the 90s.
Oh, it's Desert Storm.
We're talking about like after 9/11,
This is
weapons of
George
mass
W.
destruction.
Bush. Okay, this is George
This is
W.
George
Bush
W.
stuff.
Bush
Okay, okay,
going after weapons of mass destruction and,
okay.
kind of
Did they
chemical
ever find those
weapons.
weapons of mass destruction, by the way?
I haven't heard one piece of intel from anywhere that we found weapons of mass destruction. In fact, I haven't seen one credible piece of evidence to say that he had chemical weapons. Now,
Right, right.
there was traces of chemicals inside of some of these warehouses, but there's no traces of
Right.
weaponizing those chemicals.
Yeah, yeah. That same could be said for Bashar al-Assad in Syria, but that is another conversation. All right, finish on the question that you get a lot, being a Muslim, going into Muslim countries, and then potentially having to really inflict potential harm on innocent other Muslims. Yeah, that's rough, huh?
I think it came to me after our first firefight. Our first firefight was 2 weeks after we invaded the Iraq border, and we got ambushed by about 300 Iraqi Republican Guard. So we had to dismount out of the amphibious assault vehicles that we were in to get online and basically counter this ambush.
Mm.
And we get through this ambush about 4 hours later, and we're all getting accountability of everybody, and we have everybody except our very first firefight in Iraq, we lost 4 Marines and a Navy corpsman. But then when you get done with when I get done with this firefight, I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking to myself, like, holy shit.
And by the way, help us visualize a firefight. Are we talking, you said you get out of this amphibious vehicle. Is that a tank? You're getting out of a
Listen,
tank?
it's an Amtrak, and a lot of Marines and Navy people will know what an Amtrak is. It's an amphibious assault vehicle that can go on water and land.
Okay.
But since we had to cross certain bodies of water on the way to Baghdad, it made the most sense. But you have 13 Marines in this thing packed in like sardines, and the tops will open up and everything, and then there's a ramp in the back that'll drop, and they're up armored. So when those guys were shooting at us at these Amtraks, I mean, they weren't penetrating, but we heard the tinks,
Yeah.
the tink, 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 tink. We heard that, and then we get the 3Ds, which is distance, direction, and description. Well, who is it that we're fighting? How many are there? Which direction? Once we get the 3Ds, then they're like, ramps coming down, and we're all, and Ray, at this point, you have to understand that this is still a garrison mindset for leadership, because they wouldn't even allow us to load magazines into our M16A4s even after we crossed Iraq. We were sitting with rifles not loaded. So all of a sudden we get ambushed, and now people are scrambling to put mags in their rifles and rack that first round.
Why is that? Like, why weren't they loaded and ready to go?
Because I think a lot of the leadership that we had during the OIF or the invasion of Iraq were not there for the ones that were there for the Gulf War, I think, retired. And so what we had was a lot of leadership, and senior and junior leadership, that never had been into combat or had experience with combat. So I think a lot of the leadership was still in like a garrison type mindset.
Okay.
Once we got ambushed and we loaded mags, our mags stayed loaded for the next 9 months. I'm sorry, our ARs, our M16 stayed, were just kept loaded for the next 9 months. But it's funny to think about in retrospect, because you're getting shot at and you hear the tanks and you're like, well, we know we're going to react to this ambush. So can we load magazines already or not?
Yeah.
And when we got that word, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to load my magazine, but my hand is just shaking so bad that I can't get my magazine in my M16. And my buddy had to hold my hand and say, Kawa, take a breath. Take a breath, load your magazine. And then that was it. When the ramp came down, immediately as the sunlight creeps in, you can see off to the left where there's all these soldiers on top of this berm, and they're just shooting at our Amtraks and some of the Humvees that we had, RPGs, RPKs, small arm fire. And we got online and we rushed towards the enemy, and we overpowered them with fire superiority, not just from our guns, but the Amtraks. They had Mark 19 grenade launchers. They had 50 cal machine guns on them. So the big guns
is there
were
air support and all this? Like if there's a movie that you can reference right now, I'm trying to. I mean, this is wild, dude. And you have to understand, 99.9% of people obviously have never experienced anything remotely like this. It's even hard to visualize sometimes. So I'm trying to paint the picture. And by the way, how old were you at this time? Are you like 22, 23?
I was 22.
Oh, wow.
22.
That's wild. Okay. So I think,
but imagine driving down a desert road in Utah or somewhere like in Arizona, and then off to your left is a berm with 300 soldiers just shooting at you. Hot sun, desert, nothing but dust. And you're reacting to these 300 guys shooting RPGs, small arms fire, and everything. And the protocol for us for a counter ambush is get out of these Amtraks as fast as you can.
Okay.
Get online as fast as you can.
And when you say get online, what does that mean? I
mean, we're all online. If we lay down and look to my right, look to my left, I can see all my Marines down.
Okay. Get on the ground, basically. Get out of the vehicle, get in a line. Okay, got it. Using the vehicle as cover.
Get in the prone, which is laying down on the ground. So we have, we make ourselves small, but then we establish a base of fire. A base of fire is established only so that another element can move forward. So what we're doing is we're kind of leapfrogging each other. So let's say I take my team and I rush 15 yards and I get down. Well, now it's my job to keep their heads down so that you can take your team, Ray, and you can rush past us.
Got it.
And then when you guys get down, you establish a base of fire, and then we maneuver, right?
Got it.
And this is this leapfrogging thing that we do to get to close close distance within the enemy using fire superiority, and it works like a charm.
It really does work. And they're not picking you off while you guys are leapfrogging? Like, do some people get picked off?
I personally, on the initial rush towards the berm, didn't see anybody go down, but later I learned that we lost 4 Marines and a Navy corpsman afterwards.
Do you
But
remember, were you scared shitless? Like, do you remember how you felt? I know it was a long time ago, but like, do
no,
you
I remember
remember
exactly how I felt.
how
I
do you
was scared
feel?
shitless. I was scared shit. I mean, my hand was trembling so bad that I couldn't get my magazine in my M16. I mean, I was like scared, I was nervous, I was angry. And as soon as the ramp goes down, it felt like everything was in slow motion. And this was the first time I actually got shot at. And I didn't even know what that meant. Like when I saw little puffs of dirt raising off
Yeah,
the ground, I realized that those are impacts, bullet impacts near me, not just me kicking dirt around.
yeah,
You know, when you start hearing the snap of the rounds going past your head when they're close enough, and because they're breaking the sound barrier, and you hear a snap,
yeah.
that's how you know that you're actually getting shot at. So, but all of that, if I can describe it, was like so slow motion, man.
Mhm.
I felt like we had all the time in the world, and at the same time, I felt like we were never going to get to this berm, you know, but we did.
Yeah.
And we finally made it to the berm, but we had a lot of dead bodies on that berm from the Iraqi Republican Guard, but then a lot of them also retreated to the far side of the berm, which was this tall, grassy field. At this point, we started getting 2 Marine Cobra attack helicopters on station for us, and they're basically telling us, hey, you guys have a bunch of Iraqis in the tall grass,
Mhm.
just so you guys know. So then the Amtraks move and they go around, they try to flank these guys, and now we're going through the tall grass. But why I bring the tall grass up is because when we get to the other side of the berm and we get down the berm and we see this tall grass, I mean, we're talking about like 10, 11 feet
Wow.
high. And the visibility was like just a few feet. It was so thick. We're like breaking brush chasing these guys on foot, but we have to remember to stay online because we don't want to get ahead of each other and then have somebody get shot by their own. And what I remember specifically before we went into the brush was I heard the call echoed up and down the line, fix bayonets. And I'm like, what?
Fix bayonets?
Yeah, fix bayonets.
What?
So we take out our K bars, and our K bars had the locking mechanism that goes onto the M's, and we no shit fixed our K bars to the front of our rifles in case we were charged at by an Iraqi from the brush. Like in case he charges
And
you, you
by
don't
the
have
way,
time to.
I mean, bayonet worth I'm picturing like 19
Yeah.
1900s or something. Seriously, literally like a sword attached to the barrel of your gun. That's
Yeah, I
insane.
mean, we're talking about a modern day K bar that's about 10, 11 inches attached to your M16, ready to stab somebody.
That's
And that's what it was.
insane. Because
And
you're in the 12 feet of grass. So who knows if somebody's all of a sudden going to charge through the
exactly.
grass and then you can stab them?
Exactly, because you may not have time to pull the trigger, but you may have enough time to thrust and stab them. And so, we heard fix bayonets, and we're all sitting here like, okay, you guys fix your bayonets, I'll pull security. Okay, you guys are done, I'll pull security for me so I can fix my bayonet,
Yeah.
But now bayonets are fixed, and we're walking through the tall grass like as if we were Elmer Fudd hunting wabbit, just kind of creeping, and we're staying online. I'm looking to my left, I'm looking to my right. Yep, okay, we're good, let's stay online. And every once in a while, you hear like a bang, 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 like down the field or on the other
Yeah.
side. So some Marine shot at somebody. And then the Amtraks were actually flanking to our right, so they're trying to go past the other side of the tall grass and kind of cut them off over there. And that's what they did. So between us going through the brush and the Amtraks having our right flank, we were able to kill and capture all these guys. In
Wow.
fact, that first firefight, we didn't capture anybody. Everybody was dead. But then afterwards is where we had to do some of the admin stuff, like, well, which one's the officers and who are the enlisted, and like, do they have any intel on them? So we're like collecting all the officers, and how we knew that they were officers back then was that their shoes were slightly more red, not necessarily black. The enlisted
Wow.
men had like black boots, and the officers had like this brownish, reddish kind of boot that kind of gave their rank away. You do all the post-assault things like checking for intel, seeing if anybody's alive, giving them
Yeah.
medical treatment if they are, but nobody was alive. Everybody was dead at the end
I
of
mean,
that.
how
All
many people are
300.
we talking about?
I mean, we're talking about a little over 300 people.
So then what happens to the bodies? Like who takes care of the bodies? Who does anything with them? Or do they just lay there?
Well, the bodies that we personally hadn't figured that out. We knew that the army at some point was going to come in behind us and help collect the bodies, but that wasn't our job. And as far as
Okay.
that first firefight goes, our job was to get past the firefight and then get back in the Amtraks and continue to push towards Baghdad and
Wow.
engage enemy as we needed to. But to kind of answer that question early on as to how me as a Muslim dealt with that,
Yeah.
it was hard, man. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. After that first firefight, I kind of got teary-eyed. I got emotional because I was like, man, did I just kill other Muslims?
Yeah.
You know? And on top of that, we're not talking about insurgents that came here to kill Americans. We're talking about Iraqi men who voluntarily enlisted into their military to help defend their nation from foreign occupiers. And here I am thinking that we're the good guys. In retrospect, I didn't know who the good guys were.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like, are we the good guys
Yeah.
or are they the good guys for defending their nation? You
Yeah.
know, and here we are slaughtering them. So that was very difficult for me because in Islam, they say that when you kill one human being, it's as if you killed the entire mankind.
Wow.
And when you save one human being, it's as if you saved the entire mankind. And that is kind of the rules that we live by as Muslims. First of all, don't kill anybody.
Yeah.
And if you do kill somebody, it's only in self-defense. But even then, if they say, hey, we don't want to die, so we surrender, then you as a Muslim, it's your duty to say, okay, surrender then, and maybe we can find a peace treaty afterwards, right? Not necessarily with 300 Iraqi Republican Guard, but in general, we try to, we shoot for peace, and then we introduce violence as a self-defense method, basically. And
But that's the perspective of a Muslim. That's not the perspective of the United States military. So here you are, a Muslim in the United States military. I guess, did you ever come into a situation where you needed to make a choice between those two? Do I handle this as a Muslim or do I handle this as a Special Forces Green Beret?
Well, I mean, at the time, I was a young Marine in the infantry, and I had my brothers to my left and my right. These are guys that these are guys that I went through boot camp with, through the School of Infantry with. We came to the fleet together. And by the time we got to Iraq, we've been together for a little over a year. And, to answer your question, it's like, well, how do you deal with that? I just had to come to terms with it, Ray, to say, look,
I get it.
If I have to kill somebody, then I'm going to kill somebody. But I don't necessarily want to go around just killing people. At the end of the day, as long as my Marines to my left and right, they're safe and we get home safe, then I'm just going to do what I have to.
No, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think what everybody needs to realize, myself included, is this is 22-year-old version of you.
Right.
The I don't know how old you are now, but let's say the 40-year-old version of you or the 42-year-old version of you 20 years later, maybe you can think about it sort of the way I'm questioning it right now, but you're absolutely right. Like my question's not even valid to the 22-year-old version of you, because the 22-year-old version of you are there for that reason. And quite frankly, you're no different than the American dude to your right who grew up in Topeka, Kansas. So I get that. I respect that, actually.
And so it really came down to a simple fact. Do I really care about these men that I'm shooting at? Yes, they are Muslim, but I look to my left and I see people that I've known like brothers. I look to my right, and these guys are people that came to my house. They met my kids. They met my wife.
Yeah.
I fully trust and confide in them. So at the end of the day, I said, no, it doesn't matter who we're fighting. I just need to protect myself and my Marines and get home safe. And that's it. And that was it. That was the end of it for me. It was emotional because we all popped our cherries on that fight. Because before then, nobody in my Marine unit had any combat experience. We were all very, junior kind of leadership. Nobody that I had served with was in the Gulf War. So this was everyone's opportunity to kind of understand what an actual firefight looks like. This is everything we've been training for. And now we are understanding the emotional roller coaster, the adrenaline that's pumping, the thoughts of, look, I'm Muslim and I was struggling with killing other Muslims, but what about the men to my left and right who are Christian? Christians are also not allowed to just kill people that are innocent. So, and at the same time, it didn't matter to me if these were Muslims or Christians to my left and right, because they were my brothers. I love these guys.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I think that superseded everything at that time, the people to your left. And honestly, I get that and I respect that. And
Yeah.
the 22-year-old version of you or the 42-year-old version of you, that still probably holds. Like, you know, I'm not a religious person. I think I've shared this with you in our private conversations. And so, you know, one of the things I'm trying to really help people understand and even educate myself continually on is, you know, I love religion for the people that love religion for the clarity that it gives them. Okay. I
Right.
hate religion for the people that use religion to basically create narratives against other people. And right now,
100%.
more than anything, that's what I see happening between Christians and Muslims. You know, like I think I shared, I had Reverend Munther Isaac, the Palestinian Christian Reverend from Gaza, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, you're a Palestinian Christian. Do you like Palestinian Muslims?" And he basically said, "We love each other. We absolutely love each other."
Mhm.
Now, do we get along on everything? No. Do we have the same theology on everything? No. But fundamentally, and when I posted that clip on Instagram, I mean, it's wild. It got 100,000 views, thousands of comments, and the comments were a Muslim person saying, "I love my Christian brother," followed by a Christian person saying, "I love my Muslim brother," followed by the Muslim loving the Christian. So, dude, it's infuriating to me, the weaponization of religion. You know, it
Mm.
really drives me crazy. And one of the things I was excited for you to shed light on is kind of how that plays out in the military, and then really just how that plays out overall for you.
Well, I mean, religion is definitely a complex topic, and I agree with you. I love religion for the fact that it gives people structure, it gives them faith, and it gives them, like some degree of clarity to life. And as a Muslim, Muslims don't hate Christians. Muslims don't hate Jews. We accept Jews and Christians because they are people of the Abrahamic faith.
Yeah, yeah,
In fact, it would be a sin for me to treat Christians in a bad way or to say that I hate Christians. It would be a sin for me to say I don't believe in the Bible or the Torah, because as a Muslim, we accept the Torah, we accept the Bible. The Torah was given to Moses, the Bible was given to Jesus, the Quran was given to Prophet Muhammad. And these are all prophets and messengers, but no Muslim can sit there and say, well, we hate Christians, because that's not, where is that? Nowhere in Islam does it teach you to hate Christians. And that's
yeah,
one of the biggest things I get from ignorant people online is they'll throw out a verse or they'll say something like, well, Muslims are over there killing everybody,
yeah,
and I'm just
yeah.
like, in religion is a very easy way to build common ground with people, right?
Totally, totally.
If and it's a very easy way to gain support for a cause. So if I were to say you're Muslims, you should be defending your land. These are infidels occupying. We need to band together because these
Yeah,
infidels are dude, I would get Muslims to join up on that, just like I would get Christians to join up on that if I told them, "Hey, these are Muslims trying to attack you."
yeah,
We need to. So I can weaponize religion very easily. I can misconstrue the verses or the ideology and then use it to weaponize people. And I'll tell you what, man, a lot of the Muslim terrorist organizations, half those guys don't even know how to read.
yeah, yeah,
They're just listening to some religious cleric saying, "We got to kill the infidels." And they're like, "Okay, well, let's kill the infidels." It's
totally,
almost like
totally.
brainwashing. And it's the same thing in Christianity. It's the same thing in Judaism. Different aspects of it will
Absolutely.
create extremism.
And the problem is those clerics. That's the problem. The problem is those clerics, those politicians, those people that are preying on these uneducated, whatever denomination or religion they are, uneducated people, and then really brainwashing them under the guise of whatever religion they want. Let me ask you this
Exactly.
about these, again, quote unquote jihadist organizations. What's blown my mind, and we've talked a little bit about the Taliban, we've related that to the Mujahideen, which the United States backed the Mujahideen, and then the
Mhm,
Mujahideen in many ways becomes the Taliban. A quick little recap
mhm.
for everybody, and then all of a sudden they're the enemy. That right there should put off a red flag for everybody. Okay, step two,
Right.
ISIS, Al Qaeda. Here are two radical Muslim organizations, or at least that's how they were built and that's how they are PR'd, whom supposedly hate Israel, they hate the Jews, like viscerally. But
Right.
then here's what's wild: they never attack Israel, they never
Never.
attack the Jews. So, like, what gives? I just don't get it. What gives?
Oh man, we could talk about this for hours, Ray. But I'll try to summarize it this way, I suppose. The U.S. government, and I don't want to say just the U.S. because this has been happening since the dawn of time, being able to use proxies to
Yeah.
do things for us. One, maybe because we don't have enough men. Maybe because we can't. We have nobody in that area. And so we're very good nowadays. It's solely because we just can't go to war with every country. We cannot we cannot say we're going to go to war with Syria and that's a war, a theater of war now, What we can do is we can send special operations units into a country to operate, but that doesn't mean that we're at war with that country.
Yeah.
It's not casus belli, right? And so the same way we use our soft units to go do specific things, it's the same concept. If we want to, let's say, stage a coup in Libya and throw Gaddafi out, then we're just going to find somebody in Libya through our intelligence network that opposes Gaddafi, and we're going to say, hey, you guys, we'll help you organize, we'll weaponize you, we'll fund you, but then what you need to do is you need to take out Gaddafi, right? And that's how these proxy militias get born, or how they start is that we have an objective somewhere in the world that we need to execute to some degree, but we just can't declare war on this country. So let's use our intel sources to find some boots on the ground who are local natives that can do our bidding for us. And when I look at Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Nusra Front, Al-Shabaab, a lot of these proxy militias were created, funded, and organized by parts of the U.S. military and CIA and UK and Israel to do our bidding in certain countries. And that's why Al-Qaeda has never once even looked at attacking Israel. That's why ISIS has never even once looked at, attacking Israel, because that's not their job. Their job is not to attack the enemy or the perceived enemy. Their job is to continue to perpetuate conflict and destabilization of a nation, so that we can have some kind of leverage with that nation to say, hey, we'll come to your aid, or we'll give you X, Y, and Z. I mean, look at Nigeria and Sudan, right?
Right.
The UAE controls the RSF in Sudan. The RSF is the Rapid Support Forces. These are the guys that are going around just slaughtering Christians and and Muslims in Sudan. And then when you look at it, you realize that UAE is the one funding these guys.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, why are they funding these guys? Well, the objective in Sudan is to gain control of the gold mines. There are 6 very large gold mines in Sudan, and a lot of that gold is now controlled by the RSF, which they use slave labor to mine, extract, and then export it or ship it to UAE. I mean, just in 2025 alone, UAE has received over $900 million of gold from Sudan.
That's insane.
Sudan is sitting on 1,000 tons of gold. So you see that UAE wants something. They can't declare war on Sudan, so they find somebody that can do their bidding. They give them the money. But in this case, this is a collaboration between UAE and Israel, because Israel is the one that weaponizes the RSF. A lot of their weapons are Israeli made. The LAR rockets, those are Israeli. So, but that's the concept, and that's the playbook. And that's how we stage coups. I mean, we've staged 51 coups since the inception of the CIA in 1948. And that is our playbook. If we can't declare war on the country, if we can't declare war on them, then we basically unleash our attack dogs.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. There's that Confessions of the Economic Hitman by John Perkins, where he basically talks about the playbook, the playbook. And that playbook always happens with countries that are rich in some natural resource or some type of mineral or some type of commodity that, again, the powers that be, the power structure in the Western world wants. So I love when I see the memes of like, gold is discovered in Uganda, and then all of a sudden you'll see a bald eagle and it'll be like, send in democracy.
Yeah. I mean, look at France.
It.
France is doing the same thing in Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
France is extracting gold out of Burkina Faso, and then they're sending it to, and then look at Nigeria. I mean, what's happening in Nigeria right now, right? Nigeria is the #1 producer of agriculture and lithium in all of Africa.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it would be in anybody's best interest to go in there and strike a deal with these people and say, hey man, let's do a trade here. But if Nigeria says, no, 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 we want to keep this for ourselves and our people, well, then it's okay. You don't have to say yes, because now what I do is I'm going to activate, in this case, Boko Haram, right? And have Boko Haram just basically attack your military, attack your government until it's
Yeah.
destabilized enough where then you'll say, okay, like don't, okay, we'll give, right? Let's strike a deal. Right. And that's the playbook. And so we've been doing that as long as America has been able to do business overseas. We've been doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
look at Central and South America. You could talk about Noriega.
Yeah.
I mean, we put Noriega in power, and then we took him out of power when he stopped working with us.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
our playbook. We put Saddam in power of Iraq, and then we took him out when he stopped playing along. I mean, we've done this to everybody, Gaddafi,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
This is our playbook.
Absolutely, man. That is absolutely the playbook. And I think, my God, it kind of goes back to the beginning where we talked about like Pandora's box has been opened. People are now, they're connecting these dots and they're taking it back to Dwight D. Eisenhower giving his address about the military industrial complex to
Right.
John F. Kennedy. And then John F. Kennedy coming into power and realizing, hey, this is a real thing. I want to pull my troops out of Vietnam. So that was a hindrance to the military industrial complex. At the same time, with Kennedy, you've got the situation with Israel, the proliferation of nuclear weapons at the Dimona power plant. You had, him pushing Ben-Gurion on registering as a foreign agent. So obviously the powers that be didn't want that. And so,
And don't forget about Cuba.
yeah.
I just posted a
Cuba.
video.
Yeah.
I just posted a video about Operation Northwoods, right?
Oh, it's
And just
great.
to show you this playbook, guys, for the audience that's listening, our playbook isn't just exclusive to overseas. Our playbook works here in America very well. If you look up Operation Northwoods, if Operation Northwoods was actually executed, if JFK said, "Okay, I'm on board with this," that when they executed Operation Northwoods, tens of thousands of Americans would have died that day. It would have made 9/11 look like another weekend in Chicago. And in fact, I said that in the video.
That's great. That's
And
great.
the plan behind Operation Northwoods was to attack commercial airliners as they took off, use remote control airplanes to run into buildings, kind of 9/11 style, attack cruise liners as they were leaving the ports, and attack maybe Navy vessels as well. The point was to kill as many Americans as we could, and then take that and blame it on Cuba to justify war. Okay? So just think about what our government and military are capable of when they want something done. I mean, if JFK was less than a president that we perceive him as,
Yeah.
he would have put a John Hancock on there, and there goes Operation Northwoods. They would have executed tens of thousands of Americans. I mean, planes would have been falling out of the sky. The Twin Towers may have been hit earlier. Cruise liners. I mean, it would have been chaos.
Yeah,
But the
absolutely.
American people would have been angered enough to support going to war with Cuba, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, man. Operation Northwoods is something not a lot of people know about. What happened in the Gulf of Tonkin is something not a lot of people know about.
Vietnam.
I'll tell you the one thing that not a lot of
USS
people.
Liberty.
USS Liberty. There you go, man. There you go. USS Liberty. But that has really come into the forefront. And honestly, the credit goes to a guy named Phil Turney. He's one of the USS Liberty survivors. And Phil wrote a letter to Candace Owens. It really resonated with Candace. Candace brought Phil on her podcast. And I think Phil had done a podcast with Jocko Willink, prior to that. But that really put the USS Liberty on the map. And it's fascinating now when you see these Turning Point USA events where Gen Z is standing up asking questions. Every single one of them, from Jeb Baugh, who I had on the podcast, to all these other kids, they all cite the USS Liberty. They bring that up, and that was the ultimate attempt at a false flag. And it's interesting, man. People are waking up to the truth, and it makes you realize it's like, have we been lied to our entire lives? Like everything.
Yeah, and the short answer is yes, we have been lied to our entire lives.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that people are waking up. And I think a big thing that contributes to that is what happened October 7th in Palestine, Israel. Is October 7th happened. Since then, you have 70,000 people that have been documented as dead, killed by the IDF, and you have another 250 to 300,000 estimated underneath all the rubble.
Yeah.
Now 2 years of war in Gaza And I don't want to call it war because it wasn't war. The Gazans had no weapons. They had shitty rockets. Otherwise, they had rebar and broomsticks. They're not, they have, but 2 years of doing that really, really shed a huge spotlight on that whole area, the
Yeah.
Levant, Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria. And you're right. Gen Z kids are right now are the heroes of our country because they're the ones that are standing up, questioning everything, saying, why? Why do we continue to send all this money to Israel? How are they our closest ally when they don't support us back? They didn't support us in Iraq. I didn't see any IDF in Iraq. I didn't see any IDF in Afghanistan. I didn't see IDF in Syria. So what is it? How are they our closest ally? And don't tell me that their intel is what makes them our closest ally, because their intel capability obviously fell short on October 7th, right?
Yeah.
And we can get into October 7th and what I think about it, but the 2 years of seeing what's happening over there through TikTok videos, Instagram, all these things have also contributed to the awakening, or the noticing, as people are calling it,
Yeah.
of who the actual players are and what the actual objective is.
Yeah. No,
And
no,
and
totally.
and listen, what happened in Gaza is nothing short of an atrocity. But at the same time, those people are martyrs. Why are they martyrs? Because look at now how the entire world is waking up to
Yeah.
what is happening and who the actual players are.
No, absolutely. You said something interesting. You said their intel, it's not that good because it fell short on October 7th. But did it fall short on October 7th?
Well,
Did
that's
it?
why
No,
I
I
said
know,
that.
I know. And all right. So that leads me into, I do want to get your take on Charlie Kirk, because I shared this with you before we hit record. Honestly, some of your videos have been some of my favorite in terms of breaking down the nonsense about Charlie Kirk. Obviously, Candace Owens is doing, she's the leader of trying to, and let's just call it, get to the truth. But let's
Mhm,
start with, you've got this gorgeous gun rack behind you, and I've seen your videos. I know you know how to operate a gun. Let's start with
mhm.
the first thing, which is this 30-06, which now the whole country knows that terminology. I mean, is there any chance a gun that, from my research, is that powerful could go in his neck right here and just stop? Like, how does that make any sense?
Well, I think that one's easy, Ray. 30-06 is a very powerful round. In fact, people use it for game. In fact, some people don't use it for big game hunting because they say it does too much damage. They want to either retain the head of the big game, or they just don't want to like have this big massive hole in this thing. So, but like 30-06, for 30-06 to go through a human neck, I think what we realistically would have saw was Charlie's head hanging off his body by just skin. You
Yeah.
know, a 30-06 is powerful enough. If I hit you dead center in your throat, it may be powerful enough to almost decapitate you. But even if it doesn't decapitate you, it's going to leave such a gaping hole on the entrance, and then especially on the back side of that, if it goes through, that it wouldn't have looked like what we saw in all the videos of Charlie Kirk getting shot. What Charlie Kirk got shot with was something of small caliber that was able to penetrate his neck, leave a small hole, but also maybe strike a jugular or an arterial vein that then spewed all that blood.
Mm.
But it wasn't 30-06, Ray. There's just no
Okay.
way. And
Yeah, that
30-06, it wouldn't have got lodged it wouldn't have got lodged in his neck. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
I
that
think,
that part of them describing him as
yeah,
Superman, and, his neck muscles were so strong that it
his
stopped
neck
the bullet.
bones, yeah.
His neck bones, yeah, which, by the way, I mean, I feel my neck. I don't really even feel any bones in there. What are they talking
No.
about?
No, I mean, yeah, it's weird. So 30-06, there's just no possible way
Yeah, yeah.
that 30-06 could have done that.
What are your thoughts on, I mean, I personally think there's a lot of credibility in the potential that that lavalier mic that he was wearing was what shot some type of, projectile. And if you're saying there's the potential of it being a small hole, kind of, and then coming out, that's what we saw. Do you think, is it feasible that maybe that lavalier mic that he was wearing, similar to the pagers that exploded in Lebanon, is that feasible as being potentially something that could have done the job?
I think it's very feasible. I think it's very feasible. I mean, like it could have been something as small as a 22 caliber, bullet that went into his neck, but I think it's very feasible that his lavalier was set up. And yes, like the Mossad are very good with creating, electronics like the pagers that went off and killed all
Yeah.
those people. And I think that the lavalier mic is if we're saying that there wasn't a shooter involved at all, then and it was the lavalier mic, I think there's a lot of credibility there with the
Yeah.
creativity of making that happen. We can sit here and speculate. Some people say it's a lavalier. Some people say there's a guy to his left or right. A lot of
Yeah.
people say that the entrance wound was behind the neck, and this was the exit wound.
Yeah.
I personally believe that it had to be something that struck him from the front and never made an exit, which would imply maybe a smaller caliber,
Okay.
which would also be feasible for a lapel mic to hold. And so that makes the most sense. Otherwise, when you see the angle of the shot, if you don't believe that that was an exit wound, then you have to believe that that was an entrance wound. And then that would imply that it was somebody to his kind of, 10 to 2 if
Yeah.
we're looking at a clock. But here's the thing. We don't have to do a lot of guessing on what it was because there's a lack of transparency from authorities. That's why we're sitting here having to put on our detective hats, is because the FBI won't share anything. And what they do share is very edited and distorted, and they only share what they want to, So where else do you want to go with Charlie Kirk? I
Well, I
don't
mean,
think it
I'm
was 30
totally,
6.
no, I'm totally with you on that. I've posted a couple videos where there is KSLR cameras literally right in front of Charlie, less than 10 feet away, that are absolutely pointing directly at his head and ironically at his neck, or at the right side of his neck where what I think was the exit wound that we saw, the blood spurting that we saw. I mean, there's a 4K SLR camera pointed directly at that. There's a 4K SLR behind him. There's so many, around him. Not to mention all the people with cell phones that were videotaping. So then I think the
Including
judge,
his own security.
yeah, including his own security. Man,
And the
what a,
Ray-Ban glasses. Don't forget about the Ray-Ban
oh
Meta
yeah,
glasses.
What was the deal with that? I didn't dig into that too much. What do they say that guy was doing? Just videotaping it all with his Ray-Bans?
Yeah, so what happened was they went back to older Charlie Kirk talks when he was doing college visits, and they paid attention to his main security guy. And that main security guy would always touch his Ray-Ban Meta glasses. And we know for a fact that they're Ray-Ban Meta glasses from other videos where we have a clearer picture of it. I don't know what he was able to record on those Meta glasses, but why do we not have the footage from that, right?
Right.
Just like the two DSLRs, why do we not have the footage from that? I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole. Why did they pave the whole area 2 days later?
Yeah, that was so weird.
The
That
whole
was so
Charlie Kirk
weird.
thing, to me, what makes people like us justified to go down our own rabbit holes is that our administration and our own FBI and other counterparts in the government just don't want to give us the answers.
Yeah.
They just want us to accept the official narrative and then forget about it. It was Tyler Robinson. He did it. He's a crazy. We got him. He's under arrest. All right. That's it. That case closed.
And the craziest thing is that that's pretty much what all of his closest friends are doing. And all of the goofy social media influencers like Officer Tatum or Benny Johnson or any of these clowns who are leveraging Charlie's death to,
You mean the 7K club?
yeah, the 7K club. Exactly. Those guys are such clowns. You know what's interesting about Charlie Kirk for me? I actually liked him a lot during COVID. I thought he really was doing a great job of standing up to the nonsense that I saw COVID as. And I was like, man, this kid is articulate. He's well spoken. He goes on these college campuses, and he really, not only does he handle these kids, but I honestly appreciated the way he did it. He was not never, but he rarely was rude or disparaging. He really killed them with his intellect. He really did. I'm talking on the COVID stuff, okay?
Right.
I did not like the direction I saw him take over the past 2 years, which basically, in my opinion, was stoking the hate between Christians and Muslims, first of all, and then also stoking the left versus right battle, which to me, those are the two things that are being used to divide society for our ulterior motives. We just have to come to terms with who's behind those ulterior motives. So I did not like the current direction of Charlie Kirk over the past, 15 months or something like that. But what I will say is, man, I feel bad for the kid that, first of all, I do feel bad that he lost his life. Secondly, I feel bad that all of his so-called friends and so-called loved ones, I mean, they are just selling him out down the river and they just don't care. And it's guys like you and I who we have no attachment to Charlie Kirk. We're the
No.
ones asking questions.
Right. Well, I mean, where's his parents? Why aren't his parents asking questions? Why aren't Erica's parents asking
Yeah.
questions? Why is Erica not at the forefront of trying to get the truth of
Yeah.
who killed her husband? Why is she so quick to just accept her new role as the CEO of TPUSA and now just, you know, going on podcasts and smiling and then as far as you're saying selling out Charlie Kirk, talking about, well, there's all these recordings of Charlie Kirk that he wanted us to share with you guys and we're going to share those and don't forget Charlie Kirk's message. And so you're riding on this man's coattails,
Yeah.
but not once have I seen this woman ask a hard question like, who killed my husband?
No.
Because it's 30-06. Like because nobody in her circle saying, Erica, something doesn't seem right about this.
That's
And so
that's a
is
great
every
point. That's a great
yeah,
point.
I mean, does not, so like you said, we have little to no emotional attachment to this man, but here we are trying to get justice for him. Here we are trying to solve this mystery of who killed Charlie Kirk and why did they kill Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
But I want to share with you my opinion of what happened.
Sure.
Like you said, COVID, I think Charlie Kirk was great. After COVID, for October 7th and all that, I think Charlie Kirk was very pressured into saying certain things, very basically kind of forced into, he was a little divisive. I mean, let's
He
be real.
was.
The man was a little divisive during the October 7th thing because, well, his financiers come from, Israeli Americans who kind of propped up TPUSA when he was a young
Right.
man. And he was pro-Israel for a long time, you know, and he was proud to say it. But then I think what kind of influenced or kind of, I think where the shift kind of happened is when you had like, bigger YouTube political commentators or guys like Nick Fuentes, or even Candace Owens, right? Candace Owens was saying, we should probably take a closer look at Israel. Like, why is this happening in Gaza? Is it ethnic cleansing? Is it genocide? And he was very like defensive about it. He
Yeah.
was like, no, there's no genocide in Gaza. There's no ethnic cleansing. But then he starts to slowly kind of transition to, wait a minute, like, is there ethnic cleansing in Gaza? Is there a genocide happening? And are Israel really our greatest allies? Right. And so when he starts waking up and noticing is when he gets the warm and fuzzies from people. Like, what I mean is Benjamin Netanyahu, hey, Charlie, why don't you come to Israel for a couple weeks? And he turns that down. Well,
Yeah.
hey, Charlie, how about we give you 150 million injection into TPUSA? But I'm sure there is a catch, like, don't talk bad about Israel or don't talk
Of
about
course.
Palestine. But he also turned that down, right? So when you try to bribe a man and he turns that down, when you try to bring him in and control him, he turns that down. What's left? I mean, he's such an influential person. Not only was he talking to the youth of conservative America,
Mhm.
but he was talking to the youth of liberal America because half the kids that came to debate him were liberal kids. They
Oh,
just
that's an
wanted a chance to
interesting.
debate him.
You know what, man? That is such an interesting take. You're absolutely right. He was the Pied Piper for conservative Gen Z, but he also was very, very prominent with the liberal Gen Z because they wanted to.
Mhm.
That's a great point. So now
They would
imagine.
travel to debate him,
Yeah,
like,
great
because,
point.
I mean, look, would one of us go travel to debate a far leftist? I would say a lot of conservative Gen Z kids would go to debate a liberal leftist,
Yeah,
right? So it only makes sense that a lot of liberal kids came to debate Charlie Kirk,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so this is a very powerful person at this point. You are literally controlling the youth of America, and they are listening to every word you say. So
yeah,
we cannot allow this man to wake up and then take that awakening and spread it to the youth of America. Because if the youth of America wakes up to pro-Israel Zionism, well, that's the end of Zionism in America,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And as
That's a
much as
great point.
they and so that is what that's also a lot of common ground for conservatives and liberals to come together and say, wait a minute, you believe what you believe, I believe what I believe. But here's a couple topics that we're actually aligned on,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Israel, like the
Yeah.
Israeli lobby, AIPAC, like Zionism in America, how it owns our politicians and influences all of our policies. And if you noticed since kind of Charlie's death, that there is kind of a unification between certain subgenres of conservative kids and liberal kids,
There
you know,
absolutely is.
saying, because you got conservatives going and challenging Ted Cruz and saying, well, why do we continue to give all this money to Israel when we have Americans who are homeless, veterans who are not receiving pay? You have, in this case, SNAP benefits that are not getting to Americans. You have
Yeah.
$40 billion going to Argentina. We had $36 billion to Israel. We have another $32 billion going to Ukraine. At what point are we going to put America first? And why are we giving so much why are we giving so much money to Israel?
Yeah. Yeah.
What makes them our greatest ally?
Yeah,
And when kids are
absolutely.
asking these hard questions of politicians, you notice that these politicians are like, shit, you know,
Oh, yeah, yeah, they're completely getting cooked, and all these Turning Point USA events, guys like Glenn Beck are standing up there. They're spouting the boomer
same
die
talking points.
yeah, the boomer talking points, and these Gen Z kids are not having it, man.
No,
They're not
God
having it.
said,
I love it.
God said, something about, those who bless Israel will be blessed. First of all, brother, I'm not a Christian, but I know
Yeah,
that that's not anywhere in the Bible. Okay.
no, it's
But when
absolutely
you
not.
have politicians that are skirting around these situations, and they should skirt around it because guess what? They took a lot of money from AIPAC. So it's in
Absolutely.
your best interest to not answer those hard questions
Yeah,
as a politician.
absolutely, absolutely. All right, that's good stuff. Okay, let's shift to I want you to help people understand like, this Sharia law and Muslim, you know, being a Muslim and all this. Again, I am not a practicing Muslim, so I don't know necessarily anything about it. But what I do know is the the negative viewpoints about those things are just for political purposes. But the problem is nobody knows like when somebody says, "Oh, don't they better not try to enact Sharia law in the United States." Nobody even knows what they're talking about, but they're so
Mm.
brainwashed to immediately think that's the worst thing in the world and, "Oh, shit, we better not allow that." So drop some knowledge on this for us.
Well, I think the thing with Sharia law should start kind of big picture is that one, we have to understand that this is a smear campaign. Okay, solely a smear campaign. And there are stats to back this up, but they want all Americans to feel like all Muslims in this country are terrorists or terrorist sympathizers, that all Muslims in this country want to do some kind of Islamic takeover,
Yeah.
and that all Muslims in this country want to establish some Sharia law, and then like Americans are like, well, I'm not gonna let my wife wear a hijab, and it's like no one's telling you to
Yeah.
do that, nor is so Sharia law and Islamophobia is a smear campaign, but Sharia law, two words. This is the law part is the Western is the kind of like the Western injection into Sharia because
Uh-huh.
Sharia alone means the laws of God. So when a Muslim says al Sharia, he's saying these are the laws of God. But when you put the law at the end of it, that's a
That's
Western thing.
so
Okay,
interesting. Okay. They
Arabs
just
don't say
they
Sharia
just
law.
took the term "the laws of God" and almost made it negative by
It's
adding the
redundant.
law to the end.
Yes,
Fascinating.
thank you. So they took the word law and they're using it to scare and fearmonger Americans like Sharia is going to become a law. Well, Ray, is there one Christian law in this country that lives on a legislative level? Is there one Christian law that's ever been passed in this country
Mm,
that you know of?
no,
I don't either. So
exactly.
if America is a Christian nation and we can't even pass a Christian law, what makes anybody think that we're going to pass Muslim laws or Islamic laws,
Yeah.
right? And so everybody should know that Sharia law, and I keep saying Sharia law because that's what we're calling it, fine.
Yeah.
But Sharia law is all it means is the laws of God. And there is no book that
Yeah.
is titled Sharia law. There is no manuscript that is titled Sharia law. Sharia is a broad topic. It's
Uh-huh.
think of it as the guide to life. So if Christians live by biblical law and Torah Jews live by Torah law, Muslims live by Sharia law or Islamic law. And it's what it is it tells people how to deal with problems like I'm going to get divorced to my wife. How do I deal with this? Well,
Mhm.
you got to give her this and she earns that and you know or the rules for a business. How do I go into a business partnership with a man who wants to charge a bunch of interest on something? That's all it is. What
Yeah.
meats can I eat and what can I not eat? What drinks, what liquids can I drink, right? And so when we talk about Sharia law and we talk about how it will affect Americans, guys, there is not something that we can pass that then makes some American city under Sharia law. It's
Yeah.
what you're saying is what you're afraid of is something that doesn't even exist. In
It
fact,
doesn't
there's
even
what
exist.
51 there's 51 Muslim countries, Ray. You know how many of those countries actually practice Sharia law?
Probably
Two,
zero. Oh, two.
two,
Okay.
two, two. Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, I believe, is the other
Okay.
one. Okay. Now, what are those other 49 countries doing? Are they not Muslims? Do they not live by
Such a great
Sharia?
point. Such a
Of
great
course they
point.
do. Of course they do. But the thing is, they can't enforce Sharia because they're like, no, what do we enforce? Are we going to make all women wear hijabs? That's not Islamic either.
Yeah.
Are we gonna force people to get rid of pork? No, we can't do that either. So I get videos from my followers sometimes where they're like, this imam went to a gas station in his neighborhood and he told the owner of the gas station, hey man, you need to take all this haram stuff out of here. Haram is things that Muslims can't consume or
Mm,
Muslims shouldn't do, like porn,
mm.
alcohol, pork, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so in the video, a lot of people are coming down on the video like, wow, this Muslim guy is going around trying to
Trying to dictate terms.
basically execute Sharia law on these people. But the fact of the matter is that the owner of that gas station was Muslim himself. So really, the imam
Right.
went to another Muslim and said, "Why are you selling alcohol in your convenience store? This is haram. You
Yeah.
know, why are you selling these pork skin chips? This is
Yeah.
haram." And he was saying that you should take the alcohol out of your store, you should take the pork out of your store and anything else. And if you're a Muslim, then live by Muslim laws,
Yeah.
live by Sharia law. And so that's what Sharia law is. It's a guide to life, guys. It's like when people have questions about marriage, divorce, kids,
Yeah.
property, real estate. If a woman becomes a widow, according to the Quran, what does she get? Well, she gets, what she gets. And so that's all it is. It's like if I'm troubled with something and I don't know as a Muslim how to deal with it, I go to the books of my religion and say, where in here does it talk about, uh, um, if I'm a bank, can I charge interest to people? Because even charging interest in
Yeah.
Islam is
Is illegal.
is a sin. You're
Yeah,
not
it's a
supposed It's a
sin.
haram, and you're not supposed to
Yeah.
charge interest.
Yeah.
So, but I don't want people to think that if that there's like this system that's going to be put in place. All it is Muslims living their lives. And if you have
Yeah.
a Muslim that's now a mayor of your town, or if you have a Muslim that's now a governor of your state, uh, and you can't be afraid to say, "Oh, this guy is going to bring Sharia law." I mean, look at Mamdani, right? Mamdani just became the mayor of New York City.
Mhm.
The side that wants to demonize him will say, well, now he's going to do Sharia law and he's going to take all the pork out of, New
Yeah.
York City. And there's no way. There's no way. Look at
No, I agree.
Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn,
Yeah.
Michigan is probably the most concentrated uh, demographic of Muslims and
Yes.
Arabs.
Yes.
But not even in Dearborn, Michigan is there Sharia law.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
But if you walk down the street, guess what you're going to see? You're going to see a lot of businesses in Arabic writing. You're going to see a lot of people speaking Arabic. You're going to see a
Yeah.
lot of women with different various hijabs on, some with the face
Yeah.
showing, some with no face showing, right? But that doesn't mean that they're living under Sharia law. There is no American legislation that is
Yeah.
Sharia law. It is just the
And more
neighborhood.
importantly, they're not trying to force that on you. That's not happening. If they want to live like that and it's their life, hey, go live your life. I will tell you, that was very insightful the way you laid that all out, and especially the beginning. And this just goes to show you how deep the propaganda and the narrative creation is. It should not even be referred to as Sharia law. It should be called the laws of Sharia or the law of Sharia. And if that directly translates and means the law of God and how you should live your life, oh my God, that's pretty
I mean,
nice.
listen, there is Sharia in Christianity. There is Sharia in
Yeah.
Judaism,
Yeah.
right? And it's as simple as this. I say God, this Muslim says Allah. It's like they're not two different people, bro. God and
Yeah.
Allah are just the same thing in two different languages.
Two
So
different
if we
languages.
took out the word Sharia law and we just said, well, these Muslims are living under Islamic guidelines, then
Yeah.
nobody would even care, you know?
Exactly. Islamic guidelines. The word guidelines, everyone's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Good for them. They've got guidelines. Hey, we should have some guidelines. But as soon as you attach law at the end of it, you're right, man. That is, oh my God, dude. It's deep. It is deep. The
Yeah,
propaganda
so
is
you have to
deep.
understand that there are characters in this. There are key players in this that need to demonize Muslims, because
Yeah,
if we can demonize Muslims as Americans, we can continue to justify and support all the conflict and destabilization
that's right.
that we execute in the Middle East.
That's
Let me
right.
tell you guys some stats. There are 4.5 million Muslims in America. Guess who has the lowest crime rates in any given category? Muslims.
Muslims.
Okay. Guess who's not on the Epstein list, Ray?
Muslims.
Muslims. Okay. Guess did you know that in America there are 37 US states that legally still allow child marriages?
Oh my God.
Did you know that since the year 2000, 300,000 child marriages have taken place in America, and most of them are from the Christian community? Now, I'm not making this up. This is open source, guys. You can go look this up. 37 states still allow child marriages, but yet when people want to come down on Muslims, they
Insane.
say, well, the Prophet Muhammad, he married a 6-year-old, and so he's a pedophile. Okay, well, how many pedophiles do you want me to name in this country? Because I can name quite a few
Yeah.
pedophiles here,
Yeah.
right? And also, don't forget, 37 U.S. states allow child marriage, but
So
also
when you
Prophet
say
Muhammad
37 US states allow child marriage, that means you could
legally,
like under the age of 18?
yes,
That is
yes.
wild.
In most of those states, they have to be over 13 years old.
Oh my God.
Okay, again, go do your research on that. But here's the whole point of all this. The whole point of all this is that we have a group of people who are very powerful, very influential, and have a lot of money that can create a narrative and then push that narrative on a mainstream front
Yeah.
like Fox or social media. And then a lot of Americans will just go who are just gullible and don't want to take the time to research these things
Yeah.
will just eat
Yeah.
it up. And it
Absolutely.
becomes an echo chamber of ignorance is what it becomes.
Absolutely, my man. I'm gonna have to say cowabunga on that. That was all perfect. All right,
Well,
listen,
as a Muslim, it just makes
I
me
get
as a
it. I
Muslim, it
totally
just makes
get it.
me
But
yeah,
probably
as a
pisses
Muslim,
you
it just
off.
I'm
Like
tired of
there's so much misinformation. And again, it really does come down to narrative creation for an exterior motive or an ulterior motive. I'm sorry. So narrative creation for an ulterior motive. And again, I will say, you said it perfectly at the beginning where you said, the Palestinian people have become the martyrs, and it's really the martyrs for truth. Pandora's box is open
yeah.
because of, unfortunately, what they've endured. But fortunately, God, I hate even saying that, but fortunately, what we've seen on our phones, and again, this actually scopes above Israel and above everything that's going on in Gaza. Like I said, I mean, I love people questioning. I mean, the moon landing to me has always been ridiculous. I love
Right.
people questioning JFK. I love people questioning everything, 9/11, COVID. COVID's a big one. I love questioning that because that never made sense to me. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, I probably wouldn't have this podcast. That was my wake up call where I was like,
Mm,
dude, this does not make sense. What is going
no.
on? And it was the first time in my life living in America where my freedom was affected. And by the way, it was affected like overnight. It was insane what they did. So, all right, my man, any
Yeah.
parting words, anything else you want to leave us with?
No, guys, I mean, I guess what I want to say is that it's very important in this day and age with the technology that we have at our hands to vet the information that you are coming
Yeah,
across. We cannot be in a place where the internet just came out like in the 90s where we're like, well, the internet is a new thing and I'm not savvy with it, so I don't know how to do my own research. No. No, you have AIs now that'll tell you everything you wanted to know. They'll scour the internet to find you the answers you're looking
yeah,
for. All I say is do not take my word or Ray's word for anything. Do not take a video without context and just be like, "Yep, look at these Muslims," You need to do some research if you really care, if you really
yeah,
want to know. Do some research, spend some time and do it, because otherwise, when you come to me and you're like, Muslims just kill all infidels and this and that, I don't even waste my time with you.
yeah.
But when you come to me and you're like, "Hey, Kawa, I did a little bit of research, but I have some questions on Sharia or I have questions on this." Hey, would you, dude, I'm all about it. Dude, hit me on the DMs. I don't care. Like, I love talking to people who I can tell have taken the time to just do a little bit of research for themselves. And now maybe they got stuck or they want somebody like me to help answer something. I am good with that. But
Absolutely.
when people send me a video, for example, of a wedding where a grown man is bending down and he kisses this little girl on the mouth and presents her with a ring, and then they're like, "Oh, well, look at this. This grown man is marrying this little 7-year-old." And I'm like, "Wait, do you have full context behind this video?
Yeah,
Do you know for a
exactly.
fact that that's what's happening?"
Yes,
No. So then what
exactly.
I had to do was I had to do the research and scour the internet. And I found out that these people are in Italy. It's an Italian wedding. And that little girl is the man's daughter. And that's why he's giving her a ring as well, because he's marrying his wife. He's also giving his daughter a ring. And yeah, as a father, kissing his little 6-year-old on the lips is completely okay, guys. Okay.
Absolutely.
And
What
so, but
what
don't
what a
take
great
that.
example. That's a
But don't
great
take
example.
that. Thank you. And don't take that and say, well, here it is, man. You know what? Muslims, and child marriages and this and that. And you have no
Absolutely.
leg to stand on when 37 states of your own country allow child marriages. Research. Knowledge is
I am
power,
gonna
guys. Please. Knowledge is power. And please, I want you to educate yourselves, because when you're educated, you know exactly how to combat it. Right.
absolutely.
So I guess that would be my parting words. But Ray, thank you so much for allowing me to come onto your
Yeah, man,
podcast.
I really enjoyed it. I know it's taken a minute for us to set this up, but it was definitely worth it. I'd love to do another one actually. This is really good. We'll see what questions come back and, maybe jump on here again, talk a little more guns and all that. All right, everybody. I
Absolutely.
hope you guys enjoyed it. Kawa, stay on the line. All right, call your parents, call a spade a spade. As Kawa said, do your own research. And not only do your own research, but like add your own common sense to what's going on. And I always tell people, I'm like, really follow the money. Who's gaining from everything, either in terms financially or in terms of power? Keep an eye out for narratives that are getting created, because I'm telling you, what I've learned is at the end of the day, we are all the same. Nobody's different. Nobody's better than anybody. Nobody's worse than everybody. Everyone just wants to have a good life, have a nice family, enjoy themselves. The problem is there is a layer of this world that feeds off of division and chaos and benefits financially and in every other way off of division and chaos. As soon as everybody wakes up to that, I think it'll be a much better place.
100%, man. And look, I'm America first. So as Americans, we need to ask ourselves who is actually fighting for our needs and our wants, right? And those are the people that we should support. We should never be so tribal and so bandwagoneer that we say, well, I voted for this guy, so I stick by everything he does and says. That is not the type of people we should be. In fact, Ronald Reagan said it best. He encouraged Americans to always question their government. He
Yeah,
encouraged Americans to always throw the hard questions out there and hold our politicians and everybody to account. So in this country, if you remain tribal, then more than likely we're going to remain divided. But if you can understand, that if you can be nuanced, right? If you can learn
absolutely.
the nuances, like for example, I used to be a Republican. I no longer declare myself a Republican. I'm definitely not a Democrat, but I'm in the middle somewhere where I can be nuanced enough to support some Republicans on some matter, like
Yeah.
Thomas Massey,
Yeah.
and then I can support some Democrats like Kohana and some other guys on some other issues.
Yeah.
And we have to be nuanced. That's the only way to come back together. We cannot be so hardcore where we say, it's your fault. And you're saying, no, it's your fault. And we don't give each other an inch. So please, guys, even if you're hardcore right, hardcore left, you have to learn some nuances and you have to see who is actually up there fighting for my best interests, not just because you voted the man in office. So I guess
I
that's my
love that.
last kind of.
And by the way, again, if you're not watching this on video, this is coming from a Muslim guy born in Afghanistan or from Afghanistan. Behind him is 36 amazing guns or a ton of guns, and he's wearing a USA hat. So this is absolutely America first.
That flag right there has been with me on every combat deployment. So
oh, there
just
you
let
go.
you guys
And
know.
he's got the United States flag as part of the gun wall. So Kawa
That's
is
right.
United States first. He is America first. And quite frankly, all of us living in America should be America first. We need to take
Right.
care of the home and then give charity outside and just pay attention. All right, hang on. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
This episode was brought to you by Zippix Nicotine Toothpicks. Zip more, smoke less. Totally satisfying, discreet, and delicious. Zippix nicotine-infused toothpicks are available in 6 great flavors, each containing at least 2 milligrams of nicotine to curb those cravings. Zippix is FDA registered and proudly made in the USA. Use discount code DSD for 10% off your order at zippixtoothpicks.com. Zip more, smoke less, save 10%.